it's just putting the accounting hat back on for a second. If you think of packaged software, the model is I have a view that I can achieve a business objective of X if I have this software. So therefore, but to do that, I've got to get hardware, software, integrate, deploy, train. So you have this massive upfront spike of cost, and you hope like hell that what your initial objective was actually meets that return on investment. These days you say, well, you know what? I want to do some CRM stuff, or actually I don't believe in the word CRM, but it's because it's process management, doesn't manage relationships, but I want to get access to some functions. Well, actually I can get them online at Salesforce, cool. Or I can get NetSuite for my accounting, or suddenly I need liquid bandwidth, I'll get it from Amazon and S3. So this whole notion of building and owning your own infrastructure is redundant. And the other notion I've got as well is that, again, the smartest companies, the Facebooks of the world, or Amazon do it as well. You know, you say, here's my my core package, or here's my core functions. You can go and bastardize them, enhance them, do what you want with them, and you know, you can use them when you want them. And if it don't work, oh good, turn it off. But you haven't spent hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars in some of these IT projects that you see. You don't do that. The other thing that we say is, like, if an IT project's going to take more than a year, you got a big problem. You know, so you think of these massive implementations of things like Siebel or SAP. You look at it and say, oh, you know, it's going to be a 3-year implementation cycle. It's like, at the pace of change, it's like, it's sort of redundant after year one, so it just doesn't work. So our sense is, the other thing we're also out there talking to people about is saying, if you're the CIO and you're standing there with your shotgun in front of your application stack and saying, I ain't going to do anything for you, people say, oh, actually, that's cool. I'll just go and, you go to a CEO of a big corporate and say, hey, we want to have blogs. You know, first the marketing people die, the legal people have a heart attack, and the IT guy says, okay, I'll go and do a software selection for you. And you say, you know what, save yourself the trouble, I'll just set it up on Blogspot. And you know, half an hour later you're running. So it's that sort of thing where the power's moving back to the business. And I was talking to a guy in a large telco today, and talking exactly the same thing. My IT guys aren't nimble enough. If I need access to functionality, I'm just going to rent it.
You mentioned pace of change for a moment there, and I want to come back to the social media thing for a second. Who remembers something called 6 Degrees? Yeah, a few people. Probably the first social networking type application, late 1990s, the forerunner to LinkedIn. LinkedIn then popped up, then we had Friendster to go for the social side of it. Friendster kind of gave away to MySpace. Now MySpace has become uncool because there are too many corporates in there and the politicians all have a page, so it's Facebook. Then of course we've now got all the politicians and the brands in Facebook. So do you think that, you know, these things tend to get killed off? Is it just a natural cycle that there will be something else after Facebook that by the start of next year we'll all be signing up for?
Yeah, I think it's very geographical based. I think in Australia MySpace is for teenage kids, music sharing, or all that sort of stuff. Facebook is MySpace for grown-ups in Australia. May not be the same in the US where it sort of was spawned, but you find that you know, we use Facebook intensively in the office for you know, just media sharing, and we run projects off it, and you know, we've got our groups and all that stuff. So self-forming networks, are we going to jump off it? No, but I also have LinkedIn. So again, you sort of get to that point of, I don't have a MySpace site, my kids won't let me. But the thing is, I look at it and say, some of these things will coexist. Where Facebook has really been smarter is, again, opening up their platform, letting everyone else do the work. You then create, everyone who builds an app in Facebook becomes a new distribution node for you. So I think that they'll do, but MySpace is still signing up, you know, a couple 100,000 people a day. So, you know, they're not going too bad. So, but again, things will wash over or come out. But the key then is to say if you're running a social network, you say, well, how do I make sure that if the user communities can drive this thing, you know, they'll stay there. So my kids still live in MySpace, so, and they're sort of hip and cool, genetically, obviously, but.
Do you think people are going to be happy though to see these things being owned by the large corporates? I mean, MySpace built up a huge audience before News Limited came on board, and I guess what everyone was worried about was that News Limited would screw it up. And certainly people might say it's a little bit more corporate now. Now the question's being asked about Facebook. If someone takes Facebook out of the marketplace, will that company screw that up as well? You know, is it possible for these things to remain in private hands and satisfy, you know, the needs of the audiences using it?
But if you go back to, say, Alta Vista, which was the demigod of search engines back in the sort of early days of the internet, It was owned by Digital Equipment Corporation, who didn't realise what they were sitting on. Compaq then bought Dec. Compaq didn't understand about Alta Vista. Google emerged, and Alta Vista no longer sort of lives. So the capacity of large corporates to stuff things up in acquisitions is legendary. So the answer is yes, you could. But again, is Google evil now? Maybe it is. But I think the key thing is if a model's working, and as long as you don't try and sort of change the fundamentals of it, it probably still will work. But yeah, I think if you try and sort of rip money out of it, or you lose that authenticity, the community can swing very quickly against you. So I think it's almost like it's working, it's beautiful, they're still innovating. Don't get in their way. But because another thing, I'm also looking at. I talk a lot to some of the more incumbent .coms here, the ones who have, and you know who they are, who've sort of in Web 1 world, they come out and they own categories. You go and talk to them now and say, shit, you could do this, or you could mash that up, or you could, bring this, or open a community model there, and they're like, you know what, we'd love to do that, but we're so busy, just turning the handle, living in the world of what we've got, that I think it's more likely that those things will wash over. So if you look at a real estate website in the US called Zillow, you look at it and say, that's just going to eat anybody, that'll eat realestate.com.au if they don't move fast. Or there's another one I saw the other day, Terabits, which just a beautiful localization tool, sort of notionally real estate, but it's more about an intensely local thing, just drag and drop, create your own thing. It's a bits with a Z on the end, terabits.com. So I look at those things and say, it's more in those areas where people aren't sort of keeping up and innovating, working on the interface, adopting these new models or experimenting. If you look at a company like Google, their interface, you look at your search results, they still look like shit. But some of the stuff that they've done in terms of, people say to me, when they bought Keyhole, well, why did they buy that? What's their business model? I said, look, I don't know, nor do they, but they know it's cool, it's good, and they'll work it out. So their capacity to sort of say, we'll give something a crack, or we let our people run with stuff, is a way that things emerge, and if it's monetizable and stuff, it flies. But again, they bought JotSpot. I don't know if people ever use JotSpot. That seemed to have disappeared off the radar screen. We were going to do some real cool stuff with JotSpot, but Google bought it and it disappeared. So it may come back, but again, that's an example of somebody who's got something really good, but for reasons only known to themselves. But they've done a good job with YouTube. They've just let that go. So I think it's situational. I don't think it's whether you're big or small. It's your mindset.
In terms of another area that certainly captured the imagination of the public, and we've hyped it up in the press no end, the virtual worlds, Second Life and its successors. What sort of future do you see in that space? Do you see that as being a forerunner for a new model for the web, or is it another phenomenon that may possibly burn out in its own time?
And there's a guy here, Bruce Joy,
Bruce is just there.
You were just talking, and I mean, Bruce knows more than this stuff than me, but I think the emergence of gaming and gaming concepts for learning, for communicating, for collaborating is where the world will head. Now, if you go into Second Life, you're not going to become the next .com billionaire overnight. It is a platform for really cheap experimentation. The thing is, you go into Second Life is a bit like, going to a display home. There's like lots of cool shit, but no one's there. But if you schedule stuff and organise it, Second Life is a great platform to experiment. So if I've been working with some of those guys. That big 7-star hotel in Dubai. They're with the helicopter on the roof and that.
The Auberge.
Yeah. So I've been doing some work with the Jumeirah Group around innovation and stuff, and I'm saying to them, rather than spend 10 billion and hope that people like it, why don't you go and do some cool stuff in Second Life? Just build, prototypes of stuff or prototypes of rooms, and a lot of people are doing that. So again, think about what you're trying to do with it. But I actually like World of Warcraft. I just think that their business model, again, that's changed gaming. It's like, don't come pay me $100 and then piss off and never talk to me again. Pay me a $15 subscription for the rest of your life. Again, they should open up a bit more and let all those Chinese chop shop dudes sort of run an economy off it. But again, there's an economy that's built off it. Why close it? Open is better than closed. Kevin Kelly, 1997 Euros for the New Economy. If you haven't read it, go and read it, because it's the principal book for the web. But I look at that. But I was talking to one of my staff members recently, and he was talking about his staff review. He did it in World of Warcraft because he was in a different location from the guy. They had to do their staff review thing. So, oh shit, they were playing a game of World of Warcraft. They do it online. So it's, I Yeah, so virtual worlds absolutely have a big future, whether it's going to be Second Life, whether it's going to be World of Warcraft, whether we're going to bring gaming and concepts from gaming as ways of learning and stuff. It will happen. Something will emerge, but that area is still up for grabs.
So I guess the $9 billion question then, before we throw to the floor for a couple of questions, is what do you see as being next? I mean, if there's anything out there that you think is going to signify the next wave of development, what do you think it's going to be?